Hello, everyone. 'Tis I, Madame Askew, and I am thrilled to be back on Tuesday night. I love our Tuesday nights together, everyone. This is really, it's my favorite time of the week. Barring Friday, which I also really love because that's more time spent with all of you. Um, Basically, what I'm saying is any opportunity I have to spend time with you gives me great joy. And I'm so excited for it. So, it's our regular Tuesday Stitch and Twitch conversation about sewing. Your opportunity to ask me anything sewing related. If it's not sewing related, depending on the question, I may be willing to answer it too. But respectfully, this is for sewing questions. So please try and keep it around the sewing topics. Hello, Danaeus. Oh, it's so good to see you, my darling. Hello, friend. Welcome, welcome. So, hello, good evening. So, we have been working on a petticoat, and if you're on Patreon, then you've gotten to see some of the complexities of putting this together. On Tuesdays, I've kind of been recapping and also kind of faffing about with the project and answering questions. So I'll be faffing about tonight with ruffles. I have scads of ruffles that I'm putting on this petticoat. I'm definitely going off brief with the pattern, as it were, and just adding the number of ruffles I want to have in my life for reasons. And thank you, Danaeus. I am so happy to see you. And hello, Argent Peacock. It's so good to see you. And yes, faffing, sewing and faffing is so fun. But I have a package, a fabric package has arrived. So I am gearing up, getting into a whole new big, massive project. And so as I am collecting things for doing that project, fabric is arriving. I'm very excited. So this is fabric for making another corset, because currently I have one corset I love to wear all the time, a second corset that I think is absolutely stunning and beautiful, but I did not adjust it enough in a certain area for myself, and so wearing it for long periods of time I don't find as nice as corset number one. So I wanted a third corset, so corset number one is not getting such a workout all the time because I wear it 90% of the time that I'm corseted, which is a lot of wear and tear on a garment. I will preserve it longer if I have a second corset that is more on the same styling, same size, same configuration. So I'm basically taking the exact same pattern and making another corset. And I want it to be a cool corset, something that's temperature thoughtful, if you will, because corsets, honestly, people ask me this all the time about corsets. Isn't it uncomfortable? Not particularly. I make them for myself. They're made to my measure. So they are not uncomfortable for that reason, unless I've made a sewing or fitting error. Good evening, Joanne. It's so good to see you, my darling. Thanks for joining in. So usually the challenge I actually have with corsets is that they're hot. And especially these days with the hot flashes, oh my goodness, when that happens, it's so hot right there in the core of my body. And so I want to create another corset that's going to be kind to me temperature wise. So I bought some very specialty fabric to do that, and I'll show that fabric to you tonight because it's in this packet. First things first, I shopped with Mood. I love Mood. They're a wonderful company. Boom. And they have an incredible array of fabrics. They are not the only place you can go online to find fabrics. but they are one of my favorite places to go online to find fabrics. I go there often. Also, if you buy a certain number of yards, you get like free swatches, and I love a free swatch. Look at that. Isn't that stunning? I have potentially plans for this fabric. We'll see. I have to talk to the Grand Arbiter and see if he sees what I see about it. I'm like, I fell in love with that. Also, hello, Phyllis. Hello, my darling. Here's another thing about Mood. When you shop at Mood and you have your whole purchase sorted, they will offer you a very good deal on 5 yards of really nice muslin. So when I'm shopping like this to gear up for a new project, a big project, I'm always going to need more muslin. I always pick up this this 5 yard packet because it's a bit of a discount and it's a really nice quality. And it's just ready to go. I can go through 5 yards of muslin in no time flat. I never have enough muslin in the workshop. Archie Peacock says it's a good thing I don't end up near Mood's physical store in the autumn. Yeah, no, look, I've only gotten to go and do my pilgrimage to Mood once. I had an amazing time. It was so stunning. The cornucopia, the treasury of fabrics is, you cannot overstate the case. It's sort of an incredible array of fabrics. Mood is like the fashion district distilled into a single store, and it has that kind of scope of fabric options and just the scale of the amount of fabrics there. I actually found it very overwhelming in person. Don't go without a shopping list. Oh, Alicia also has this swatch in her stash. I love this fabric. This is not the main show here. This is not the most important fabric in my selection, but I love it. They have it in a cotton voile, and I'm obsessed with voile. And they also had it in this really nice linen and rayon blends. I love linen and rayon, and I kind of want to do something a little maybe lighter weight next year after I finish the massive project. We could use something a little bit lightweight, and so I was looking at linen and voile and thing, but I also like the kind of dark vibes, the dark floral botanical vibes of this. It's so nice. Look at how the rayon has a really nice hand to it. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the voile. The voile has a really nice hand, but also the rayon is like this rayon linen is really, it's got a lovely feel to it. It's a nice weight. So that's on the list of things. And some orange silk with that. Ooh, Alicia, orange silk. That sounds so nice. Because I'm doing such a large project, I actually got 2 rounds of the muslin. I'm going to need it. I went through almost every inch of muslin in the workshop for the dragon, and I have to like get some more essentially. And one of the downsides of Joanne's being defunct is that when I run out of things like muslin, I can't simply go down to my local Joanne's and pick up muslin. Now, I do have several local, wonderful, beautiful quilting shops in town that sell fabric, and I really need to see if they have a good supply of muslin that is at a nice price, because then I could just transfer to go into my local independent quilting shop. I'd love to have a local independent garment fabric place in town locally to me, but I don't currently. So I rely pretty heavily on the power of the ether web. Now, one of the things I'm doing for myself in this underpinnings autumn is I'm making myself a new chemise, and I did. This is very sheer. I may change my mind. I did pick up some voile to make a chemise out of. I'd need to wear pasties with this if I'm doing a demo. But look at how sheer that is. You could make a veil out of this. I can see through it. Not perfectly, but anyway, I might still make a chemise for myself out of this, but it probably will not be a demo chemise. So by which I mean, if you have not seen me at convention, if you haven't been to a convention with the Grand Arbiter and I, periodically we do this presentation, this panel we call Undressing the Victorian Lady and Unwrapping the Victorian Gentleman, and we peel our costumes down to the underpinnings and we talk about the underpinnings and we show how the layers go together. And generally speaking, I want to have all the important bits covered and obscured because I'm not trying to break any laws. So, but that said, this is so soft. Look at that. Look at how soft that drape is, and it's so thin. It's going to be incredibly comfortable as a chemise under a corset because it will not have much bulk to it. I love that. So I'm still going to make a chemise out of this, but I'll probably need to make yet another one so that I have something I can wear under the corset when I want to demonstrate what my garments look like without, being quite so scandalous. But this is a really nice voile, and they were having a little sale at the time, so that was also a bonus. But I think it's about $13 a yard, which is not bad, not terrible. I was there shopping for other things. I know it's not my only option for getting a plain cotton voile in a single color, but the price was good with the sale, and since I was shopping other things, then I could just pay one shipping fee, so that's nice. Now, here's the piece de resistance. This is the very exciting bit of fabric. It will look not that exciting, but it's very exciting. I got some more cotton bobinette. This is English bobinette, which means it has this very fine whole pattern to it. It's basically a non-stretch net that you can use for things like corsetry. And so I like to use this to make corsets for myself because, as you can imagine, the fabric made of hulls breathes really well and makes for a very lightweight corset that is breezy, as these things go. So I wanted something a little bit lighter weight that was going to take down the weight and the heat of my underpinnings underneath my large garments that I wear. So look, this is so sheer. It's amazing fabric. It's very strong though. I've made a couple of corsets out of bobinette. I'm a little obsessed. You can get it at, this is the English bobinette. It's 100% cotton, and it has a very soft hand and very fine mesh. You can also find beautiful cotton bobinette at tutus.com. That bobinette is a little heavier, and the structure of it, the holes are a bit bigger, and so I wanted the finer bobinette. I think I like it more for corset making, But you have options, and that's important because there aren't that many places to buy cotton bobbinettes in the States, and it can be quite spendy. So usually it only comes in a couple of colors, but it is cotton, so you can dye it if you wish. I honestly considered getting some of the white bobbinettes and dyeing it. But then I thought better of it. And this comes from Mood Fabrics. Where did my pretty postcard go? Here it is. This comes from Mood Fabrics. This whole order is from Mood. And they don't pay me to say that. I just happen to love them. And if you're ordering from them and you know me and know how to get a hold of me, if you are ordering before, between October 27th and November 9th, you should reach out to me because I have a little promo code and I'm happy to share it because I'm unlikely to make another order before then. And I always miss out on using the promo code because I'm not ordering that much fabric that often. So mostly because I tend to order by the project and or I work from my stash. So that's kind of how that works for me. Right, so I love a fabric package. I was very excited that this arrived today because I knew I'd get to talk about the fabric with all of you and open the package whilst we're talking. It's very fun. And Mood is great. Mood is a fantastic source. They also are very searchable, which I really appreciate. I think this is an advantage of shopping for fabric from Mood online because they have this incredible searchable database. They also have scads of free patterns at the Mood Sewing Society. Right, it might be something cute like Society. I think they might have done a pun sort of wordplay situation. But just scads and scads of free patterns. Now, these are free patterns. It's probably a good idea if you have some knowledge of construction for the garment type you are looking at, because the instructions can be spotty. But it's still, that is like such a great resource. And I maintain that once you learn how to do certain kinds of garment construction, you can really apply that to any style of that garment. So a skirt is a skirt is a skirt sort of a situation. Right. Anyway, my darlings, I am not at the sewing machine because I need to pin up, place, position, do all of the stoking of the gathers for 2 rows of ruffles. I've already attached one ruffle, and I need to like pull some threads and things with that. I've already attached one, and it's clever because I set it up so the raw edge is pointing towards the hem of the garment, and then the ruffle falls over that raw edge. It also makes the ruffle kick out a little bit from the garment. So there are lots of advantages of doing it that way. So I still need to pull out my gathering cord and all of that from this ruffle. I haven't done any of that yet. I just got it on and I was so excited to have it on. But now I need to attach 2 more ruffles. And when I was going over ways to do ruffles on during our special sewing session for Patreon, I was mostly focusing on using a cord, a drawstring, a sort of, we call it gimp in the sewing world to do your ruffle situation. But there are lots of ways to create a ruffle. And so I also set up a few different methods. And one of them is that you can use a ruffling foot or a gathering foot. And it's always nice when you can have the technology do some of the work for you. I love that so much. So in this case, I thought it would be fun to try out using my gathering foot. So I gathered this on my machine using a foot. I will still potentially need to pull up a bit of the fabric, we'll see, but it does a lot of the work for me. Now, the thing about a gathering foot is that whilst it is a wonderful tool, it only works for certain fabrics. If your fabric is too thick, if it's too nubby, if it has too much texture to it, your gathering foot is not going to work very well. So, all right, first things first, I have scads of pins and I'm going to need every one. I actually almost ran out of pins when I was pinning on the first ruffle. I've ordered more pins. I'm always like, I have so many pins in the house, and there's like a little bit of pin shrinkage, if you will, because pins dull or get bent and then they're no good. So I do lose pins as I use them, but my goodness, I never seem to have enough. Danae says she's definitely had a love-hate relationship with her gathering foot. Look, a gathering foot is so great. And there are some like minor tricks to using it. So maybe I should do a little video. But really, it's a lot about the fabric for me. Is the fabric the kind that is going to work well with the gathering foot? So if my fabric is too thin, if it's too lightweight, if I'm using something like, I don't know, chiffon, for instance, the gathering foot may not work because the chiffon will get caught up in the feed dogs and it will get torn to shreds or eaten up or jammed into my machine. All right. Too lightweight. There might be a solution to that. I don't know. I've never found it. If my fabric is too heavy, if it's too bulky, then the gathering foot just cannot keep up with it. It's not even going to get purchased. There's like, this is the Goldilocks situation where if you get a fabric that's just right, it works like a treat. Now, I'm using a really nice 100% cotton, quilting cotton that I picked up at a local shop for this particular project. You can see it's this lovely silvery sage green. It has a little bit of a sparkle to it, which is just bonus. We love a little sparkle. It's very smooth. It has no real texture to it. And it will cooperate very nicely. Yeah, it's so pretty. Look, it's so pretty. It washes like a dream, which is great. The lace went on very nicely. It looks beautiful next to it looks so lovely next to this. It makes the little subtle green in this fabric pops more because I've got it next to this green. So that's really nice. It's like hit all of the highs for me. So Danae says the quilting cotton was definitely easier to ruffle with the gathering foot than the taffeta. Yes. Like, I don't know, the taffeta could have been too thin. It could have been too slick and woody. I have mixed results with things like silk. It depends again on the kind of silk and also the texture. So I don't use it for dupioni, for instance, because that has too much texture for me. It's just got all of those wonderful slubs The slubs are the nubby bits in the silk dupioni. And they are created, by the by, during the like creation of the threads that get woven into silk. And so it's part of the natural process of our little silkworms extruding the threads that become silk. So when you have a really like smooth silk, it's because they've removed the bits that become slubs. But with dupioni, one of the reasons why it's a little bit more affordably priced is because the slubs. It's considered a lesser quality because of the slubs. But I like the texture and I like the visual interest of the slubs, and I prefer the price point, to be honest. So that is how that works. All right. So one of the things I'm doing here is that I am pinning this to my base fabric. And first things first, I mark my center of the ruffle so I can match it up to the center of the base fabric I want to attach the ruffle to. I attach that and the ends of my ruffle to their position, and then I'll see how much, if any, I need to like pull up my gathering cords, or if it's just magically just right. Wouldn't that be nice? Never happens, but hope springs eternal. Fortunately, so I'm gathering it to what I'm calling the flounce. This is the flounce in the pattern, and that happens to have a middle seam, which is very, very helpful. The other thing I did for myself, which you definitely cannot see on the screen, is that I stitched in some straight lines for myself that are the place where I want the ruffle to be aligned, so that my ruffle is perfectly positioned across the entirety of the garment. You can mark that position using a lot of tools. You could be using chalk, you could trace it in with a Frixion pen. All of those things work really well. But for me, I know two things. One, that this fabric I'm working with is very busy. And so a Frixion pen, I'm not going to be able to see those marks across this very busy fabric. Two, I'm going to be working on this across the course of many days because there are many ruffles, and I will actually just run out of mental capacity to deal with the ruffles, and I need like regular breaks to go work on something else to preserve my sanity. So the chalk can get wiped off in that amount of time. You can also use transfer paper and one of those oh my gosh, marking wheels, and that will work very well too, but it runs into the same problem with this fabric as the Frixion pen. The busyness of the print makes it really hard to see any marks. So instead what I did, I marked on the back of the fabric where it's basically just, you know, almost white. You can see the shadow of the print through to the backside. And then I stitched along those lines with a contrast thread that I can see very clearly on the front of the fabric. I can see it. Yeah, you can see it a little bit. I did this bright green thread. So, but it's like, it's a bit of a challenge. This is a trick sometimes, is figuring out how you will be able to see your marks on a garment. So I'm always trying to make things as easy for myself as I can. I can tell you right off the bat that I'm going to have to pull up some of my fabric It's just a little bit much. It's all right. I'm doing what's called divide and conquer. So basically, I just keep folding this into segments and finding the halfway mark, and then I do the same to my base fabric, and I attach the pins in all of those places, and then I pull up my cords, and it works a treat. This is the sort of ruffle where I don't have to have everything exactly perfect. It just needs to be close enough. Some ruffles you have like a certain amount of space. You have to get exactly into that space. You need to have it really symmetrical and perfect. The divide and conquer method may not work in that circumstance. Right. Okay. The big challenge here is that I have so much fabric, I can kind of get lost in the fabric. It's very easy to be overwhelmed by the scads and scads of fabric. So my base fabric is 80 inches long, and I'm doing a 1.25 ruffle. And so that means I'm doing a ruffle that's 25% longer than my base fabric. So it's 100 inches of ruffled fabric. So it's not a very full ruffle. And if you are not in the habit of making historical fashion, that might seem like a really paltry ruffle. But it's sort of the right amount of rufflage historically. You don't want it to look like it's part of a 1980s prom dress. You're looking for something that is going to add a little volume and a lot of support for your garment. Now, here's the thing though, the fabric that my ruffle is going onto also gets gathered. So that's why I'm being like under ruffling. So normally I do about 1.5 times the width. So I'd be looking at 120-inch long ruffle versus the 80-inch space that I'm ruffling into. But because I know that fabric is getting gathered, I wanted my ruffles to start out a little bit more modestly so that the cumulative effect will not be overwhelming. So that is the plan anyway. We'll see how it works. Oh my goodness. Once I have this kind of set up, I may reposition the camera so you can see what I'm doing rather than just having me talk about it. I cleared my work table and I'm still catching this fabric on everything. It's amazing. Just so much ruffle. So as I'm going in and doing this, I'm also making certain to line the edge of my ruffle up with my line of stitching that I made for myself. I want to keep my ruffles pretty even, pretty symmetrical in that regard. It makes them tidier and it gives a better final result. unless you're doing something where you specifically want your ruffles to all be sort of higgledy-piggledy, like in a more chaotic arrangement, which is completely fine decision to make as a designer. It's one of those things where I'd say make the choice for your design that you are conscientiously making. Don't just sort of like let things happen that are asymmetrical because you're rushing. Do it because you plan to. All right. Now we'll see if this all goes according to plan. So that's exciting. So I've got my ruffle pinned in a few spots, and you can see there's a little bit of give here, which I want to tighten up to the base of my fabric. As possible, I needed to pin a few more spots to help me out here. Let's see. Grab my threads. Come on. There we go. They are moving, but they're very tight. You can see it starts to tighten up. And I just am pulling firmly, but like don't yank. You want sort of consistent pulling on your threads. And then once it's flat to the garment, then I'm going to go in with a pin, and you can use the point of the pin. You know, just sort of what this is called stroking the gathers. You are distributing them evenly across the space. So they look nice when you go in and stitch them. Once I'm happy with the way they are arranged, and I think it looks reasonably nice. Then I go in, I'm going to pin to hold everything in place. If I need to, I can like readjust my gathers as I'm stitching, but it's nice to have them all positioned before I get to the sewing machine. Now you may be able to see there are 2 rows of stitching here. Those 2 rows are on either side of my seam line. So I'll go in and I'll stitch right down the middle of this channel I've created for myself. And then when I'm done, I'll pull those threads out. So the other thing I do is once I'm happy with one end, I take my extra cords here, my threads, and I want to wrap them around my pin. I usually do like a figure 8 here, and that anchors that thread so that my gathering stitches do not come out until I have stitched it all in place. All right. I broke up my thread a bit into different chunks. That makes it easier when you are gathering. Sometimes one end of the gathering cords is not as cooperative as the other. But you see, I did not need to put it up that much. I do really need to stoke this though, because it's kind of higgledy-piggledy. I really like using my unicorn head pin for this. It's a very long pin, and I can use the horn of the unicorn to do my stoking if I like, or the tip of the pin. This part of doing a ruffle is very time consuming. I was sharing with my wonderful group on Sunday that one of the things I find so difficult about ruffles is how long they take. There's lots of little steps with them, and they take a while to do. Even if you are using tools like a gathering foot, you still have to do this part where you pin it and you position your gathers and you make certain you're happy with how they're positioned. And it just takes however long it takes. So I'm also being really careful to pin my pins in the direction that is appropriate for the way I believe I'm going to stitch this on, so I can pull them as I go. You can see it's a very delicate ruffle, but adds up, creates a lot of wonderful volume when it's all said and done. So I'm adding like a ruffled, sort of a profusion of ruffles down the back of this petticoat, which is not part of the pattern. So the original pattern has like one big ruffle at the bottom all the way around the petticoat. It's both form and function. It provides support for the hems, but it also is very attractive. So we like the ruffle, but there's just the one, and then there's the flounce, which is what I am attaching all of these ruffles to. And the flounce, again, it adds a little bit of support to the back of your skirts. So it's very important in that regard. But it's just not very dramatic. And so not only did I want more support and more volume in the back of my skirts, I make very large, very heavy bustle skirts with a lot going on. And I want my next one to be really well supported. I don't want a limp bustle. I want a perky bustle. So I decided to give my petticoat more volume in the back with more ruffles. Now I'm sort of taking a concept from a different style of bustle, and I'm applying it to this petticoat. So there is the grand bustle style that is essentially a petticoat and bustle in one, and the back of that bustle is covered in ruffles. And so I decided, why not make a petticoat that's all ruffles to go over my bustle cage, it will pack a little bit easier, and it will give me the same effect. All right, so that was all to do about 12, 15-inch sections, so not very far. And we've got many more sections to go. So I'm just going to check in. Oh, I see we have someone spamming. My apologies, everyone. Yes, so let's talk about the position. Phyllis asked, so the raw edge is facing towards the top of the base piece. It will be covered by the next ruffle. Right. Okay. So let's talk about it. So the raw edge, this edge is actually pointing towards the hem. So this is the hem edge. The raw edge is pointing to that. And when I turn this right side up, then the ruffle actually covers its own edge and drapes over the next ruffle under it, like so. Like that. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Hello, Cheshire. Hello, my friends. So I hope that that clarifies. I have to admit, this is one of those things where I'm like aware that it's a bit brain bendy what I'm doing, and I'm also struggling to find a way to describe it that I think you will understand. And I think it's very, very important to see the example, the demo, because if I tell you, well, the raw edges point towards the hem, and then you let the ruffle like curve back over that, I think it sounds a little bit mad. But then when you see it, I think it looks really cool. So at least that's my hope. That's my hope. Anyway, hello, Mama Step. And also thank you, Phyllis. So, Phyllis, I absolutely took your suggestion, and I have definitely gone with different lace for each row of ruffle. I'm very pleased because look. This is the next ruffle, and look at that lace. I love it. And look at that ruffle. I love it. So excited. I'm obsessed with this gray stripe fabric. Absolutely obsessed. I'm probably going back for a bit more of it so I can incorporate it into the Grand Arbiter's drawers, as it were. So I think my split drawers, I think I'm just going to do them out of solid color. I keep thinking about what I want to do with them. My petticoat and my bustle are both going to be made out of a printed fabric, and so maybe it's just going to be best to do my drawers out of a solid fabric. Also, I don't want to look like I'm wearing clown trousers underneath my costumes. So I'm like, well, the stripe I don't think would work out for me. Yeah, and I don't have enough of either of the prints to do my personal drawers out of the prints. I have enough to do the Grand Arbiter's drawers out of, I think, this floral print. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, we'll see. We'll see. So, oh my goodness. Back to gathering nonsense. So the gathering is like so beautiful, and it's like a wonderful effect. I like how it looks, and I love a ruffle, but I don't like doing it. I always have a bad attitude about gathering fabric. It's a skill you need for doing almost any kind of historically inspired fashion, because all of them, all of the periods, there's some element of gathering fabric to create more volume to support a silhouette. And sometimes it's just for the, outer garment too, like a puff sleeve has gathers galore, if you will. You also need to understand gathering for easing in a sleeve, easing a hem, all of these things, but particularly easing in your sleeve at the sleeve head. You need to be able to do exactly what I'm doing for this ruffle. It's just that you want your gathers to be so smooth and so spread out that once you have the sleeve head in position, and you've pressed it in every thing, nobody is saying it's a puff sleeve unless you want it to be a puff sleeve. All right, that one went a little bit more smoothly. Time to pin, and then it's smooth and spread your gathers. That is correct. That is correct, Cheshire. And I will change the camera view again here in a moment to show some more of that. Probably going to pop back and forth between positioning the gathers and chatting and seeing your comments, because I don't know, I feel like how much stroking of the gathers does anyone want to see? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you want to see a lot of it. Maybe it's your favorite thing. So a little bit over gathered on this section, so I had to pull some out, but we're good. I had a vision where I was going to do all of these last night whilst watching a film, and or something like that. And then I was like, I'm going to have to do it at the big table. There's no way. This is just too big. It's too big. I cannot be doing it, whilst sitting in front of the moving picture machine. So I saved it to do with all of you. Hello. Yes. Oh, Cheshire says everyone loves a POV shot. I've heard the same. And Argent Peacock says, stroking your gathers. It's late here in my brain that's trying to be something rude, but I can't get there. I don't know. It absolutely sounds like a double entendre. It's one of those things that is very wholesome in that it's a sewing technique and term, but it sounds like a euphemism for something very adult. One thing I found in my years of talking about teaching and demonstrating sewing and introducing people to sewing topics is that there's so many terms in sewing that sound very naughty. So, it's fun, but sounds naughty. All right, let's look at what I mean by stroking the gathers, shall we? So this is my work surface. We'll see if my camera mount will cooperate. Can it cooperate? There we go. All right. Nope. Look you. We did so well before. All right. So here's the place where I'm working on stroking my gathers right now. And I've got that all sort of tightened up. So the gathered fabric is flat and tight to my base fabric. Now I'm going to go in with my magical unicorn pin that I love to use for this. And I'm going to just run either the sharp end of the pin over my gathers like so. And all I'm doing is spreading them out so they are arrayed nicely. I don't want them to be too tightened up. I want them to be spread smoothly across the fabric. And once I'm happy, or mostly happy, with the arrangement, or the arrangement rather, of the fabric, then I go in and I pin it so it won't go anywhere. I can use, with my magic unicorn pin, I can use the unicorn horn with that, or the sharp point of the pin. And I kind of like using the horn. I'm not going to lie. It just really amuses me. These are my favorite pins. I have a few of them. I used to have a nice little set, and I've used them so much. Some of them just bent and broke and got worn out, but I love them, and they were a gift from a friend who knows how I feel about unicorns. I have a predilection for unicorns, if you will. It's a little bit of a joke. I don't generally seem like the kind of person who'd be into unicorns, I think. It's also a slang term in certain circles, and I am very aware of the slang. And so I'm also making a joke about that. Anyway, so now I've got this all positioned and I'm ready. I line up the edge with my little line of stitches that I made for myself. All right, and I'm ready to move on to the next segment. And that keeps going all the way across all 100 inches of ruffle. So I'm going to see how you're all doing. Cheshire says unicorn lovers really get it from both sides. That's so true. Poor unicorn lovers. We suffer. So, yes. When I don't remember what it was, but I started calling all of you my darlings, my sparkle glitter unicorns, because you are beautiful, special, irreplaceable treasures, one of a kind, each of you, just like a unicorn, very magical beings. And we're all about the sparkle and the nonsense here. Seems like a very nice term of affection. And people started giving me lots of unicorn swag at that point, which I was very chuffed by, to be honest. I am perfectly delighted to be associated with the unicorn. And also, hunters need not apply for licenses. This unicorn preserve is shut. It is a place of conservation. There's no hunting for unicorns in these fields, if you know what I mean. So, but I love all the unicorn swag. It just really delights me. And I love making jokes about unicorns. I love this. Cheshire says, I am fond of magical beans. So good. All right. Oh my gosh. Please keep asking me questions and talking, because I am reminded of how tedious this part is. There's no way around it. It's just has to be done. I mean, look, honestly, I could skip this step. I could just whack the ruffles on willy-nilly and not care about how they look. But the unfortunate truth is that at some point I decided I wanted my things to look nice and professional and like have a nice finish to them. And so I take the extra time to do the extra steps. Um, and also, like, I am demoing, I'm showing you what's possible. So I do legitimately try my best to do a nice job so that when I show you things, I show you a good example of those things. Um, you don't always have to be as fussy as I am being, and I haven't always been as fussy as I frequently demonstrate. Also, to be honest, there are lots of steps I skip on things. I could be basing this. I could be doing all sorts of nonsense that would take more time and probably have, create an even nicer effect if I wanted to take those extra steps. Um, Generally speaking, I take enough steps to get a nice effect, and I don't usually go like full couture and do a lot of the couturier like hand finishing for things. Um, oh my gosh. Oh, oh no. Cheshire says I have a horrible predilection to flappy hands and ruffles, so I steer clear. This is so great, though. I'm just honestly, I'm now imagining seeing, running into you again, seeing you again in person when I'm decked out in scads of ruffles. Most of my ensembles right now have very few ruffles and they have a lot of pleats instead. But I've had garments in the past where it was just basically like a fall of ruffles from waist to hem. It was madness. So many ruffles. That was the garment I'm thinking of. It was basically a football field's worth of ruffles went all the way around the skirt. It was so many ruffles. Um, so I have at times been nothing but a mountain of ruffles. Ah, oh, oh. Oh, the last production of Chicago that Archer Peacock saw was very sad. Either they didn't get it or weren't or were trying to not emphasize all the sauciness. Ah, if Archer Peacock and friends hadn't been in the booth, they would have left. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, what? Chicago is so saucy. I mean, I'm a professional cheeky strumpet. I hope I hope everyone knows that I'm very saucy. Like I can clearly edit myself when I need to, but I'm a saucy person. But Chicago is absolutely a very saucy musical. I'm I don't know how to feel about that. That's shocking. I'm shocked. All right, time to pull up more gathers. So excited. So excited. Honestly, I'm being a little bit, but I do like the the final effect of the gathers being pulled up. I do like the way it ultimately looks. It's just that it's also very time consuming whilst I'm doing it, and so I don't always have a good attitude about the process of doing the gathers. I love the effect. I am impatient with the process. Okay, here we go. Another segment. Does imagining flappy hands later help? Honestly, yes. Yes, it does. Imagining flappy hands later helps because I am amused, and that definitely helps. Um, so, here, 3 cheers for flappy hands. Oh, that pin is bent. All right, there we go. There we go. Almost ready to do some more stroking of the gathers. I feel like it needs its own soundtrack or something like that. This is why, when I am teaching, I often only demo one segment of this kind of process because the whole thing will take me scads of time, as it is right now. So I was sharing on Sunday that just pressing up the hems of each ruffle and getting those positioned and ready to be stitched takes about 20 minutes. Just doing that and nothing else, and being very focused. The cats are not even like interrupting, nothing like that. And maybe I'm slow, maybe you can go faster than that, but that's how long it took me. And this is very like, this is fabric that likes to be pressed. It takes a good steam. It holds a pretty crisp press line, all of that. But it still took me 20 minutes per hem, and I had 5 hems to do. So that's, an hour just hemming, just pressing up the hem. And then you have to stitch the hems. And I like doing this, so it's not, a punishment or anything. Good night. Argent Peacock has to sign off and gather things for the morning and try and tire out the cats before bed. Good luck with tiring out the cats. And you steam your ruffles, ? Asks Cheshire. I steam the hems of my ruffles. So I did, let's look at it. I did a very particular hem for this. I do all sorts of hem treatments for my ruffles. Sometimes I do just a rolled hem on my serger, which is like very fast actually, and not is very ahistorical, but it's very fast. I like the way it works. I do that a lot. But for this one, I knew I was going to be adding the lace. So I did a very narrow hem. This is a 1/4 inch wide hem. So I folded it up 1/4 of an inch. I pressed it all the way down, all 100 inches. And then I went back and I folded it up again and I pressed it again. So the raw edge is buried. And then I stitched my lace on top with a nice zigzag stitch, which also stitched the hem in place. And so it's very finished, very clean. Sometimes I put my lace underneath the fabric because it is more visually interesting. But in this case, I put the lace on top of the fabric because it has a finished edge. And I don't know if you can see it, but every 1/2 inch, there's a little star on the top of this lace. And I just love that little star. And so I wanted to leave it visible, even though most people will never, ever see the little star. Will I go in with a tiny rhinestone and put it on each star? Probably not. That would be madness, and it's a petticoat that will get laundered. But the temptation is there. So that is my hem, and I use the power of a very steamy iron to make that very narrow hem happen. So all of my laces for this project have a really beautiful finished edge. So this one has this lovely little scallop. So I wanted that visible. And the black lace has this sort of gorgeous, curvy, beaded tops to the lace. It really disappears against the black fabric, but it looks so sharp over the green. I love that. That looks so good. So, anyway, yes, sometimes I steam my ruffles. It's true. Okay, I'm halfway done with pinning and stoking my gathers. Halfway. It's taken me a little bit under an hour to do half. Probably do it slightly faster if I was by myself. All right. Mama Step asked a really great question. How much shorter will my finished petticoat be than my skirt? So I've designed this to be something like 4 to 5 inches shorter than my longest skirt, so that it will also fit nicely under some of my shorter skirts. I also have some very long petticoats that I can put under those longer skirts, but I usually want to clear my hem like 2 inches, at least 1 inch, but 2 gives me a little bit more safety, because I don't want my petticoats to be visible under, peeking out under the hem of my skirt. So I made this one a little bit on the shorter end of things. I have these beautiful frocks that I made before the pandemic that are on the shorter side, and they are shorter because I was wearing them at Old Tucson Studios here in Tucson, which is a place out in the desert. And I determined that I was tired of bringing home half of the desert in my skirt hems, and so I made them shorter. Also, I definitely brought home a small tumbleweed in the back of a skirt at one point from that convention. It was a small tumbleweed, and my skirts are very large, but it's just got in the hems, and I didn't notice until I got home because I had a bit of a train on that, and it was like all in the petticoats, and I was just constantly moving at that event, so it's not like I sat down and noticed that I was being stabbed in the back of the ankles or anything like that. And then I got home and I looked at my frock and I found all of this like terrible foliage in my hems. And that was the moment where I was like, I think I need to do shorter skirts if I'm going to be wearing these out in the desert. But these days, I don't have any events that take me out into the desert. I'm not walking about in the foliage. And so I can go back to having more like longer skirts. So I tend to go with skirts that come just to the top of my foot so that my toe peeks out as I'm walking. That's actually a safety concern for me. I walk with a cane, and so I want to prevent trip hazards with my skirts, so make them just short enough so my toe has clearance when I take a step. Cheshire says that needs to be a shirt. Got tumbleweeds in your petticoat? Okay, but like, look, I have the power, and I might have to make that a thing. I am working on our latest swag, which was inspired by some off-the-cuff remarks. So that's probably going up at some point this month, actually. There was a wonderful poll on Patreon, and people voted on their favorite options. So Now that I have the favorite design, it's going up. All right. Stoking the gathers. Okay. Do. It's so nice. It's just sitting here and doing this. The stitching part is pretty straightforward. So I was mentioning at the beginning that you can see the 2 rows of stitching that I use for my gathering cords. That's very your gathering stitches. It's very traditional to do the 2. And I stitch 1 on either side of my seam line. So when I go in and sew this permanently, I just stitch right down the center of this little alleyway I've made myself right over the gathers, and it holds everything very nicely. And then when I'm done stitching it all in place, I go in, or at least I intend to go in, and usually I make this happen, and I remove my gathering stitches. Now, there have been times when I have neglected to take out my gathering stitches for an amount of time that is longer than you might imagine. Sometimes I simply forget. Sometimes we're down to the wire and I'm like, well, I can pull out my gathering stitches, or I can finish X, Y, or Z part of the project. And so I decide to finish the project. And then I tell myself I'll pull the gathering stitches out at the hotel, and I never do. So if I don't get them out before I pack up my trunks, they will not get unpicked until the next time I'm home and remembering. Very bad habit. It's definitely like one of my toxic traits as a sewist. I forget to pull out my gathering stitches. Okay. I'm like over the halfway mark, not quite 2/3, maybe at 5/8. Looks nice though. Saturday, we have our crafternoon on Discord where I do more sewing. I talk more about sewing. And it's a wonderful time to bring your own projects and sew or paint or sculpt or what have you, build shelves, what have you, while we're all hanging out as sort of a co working time, if you will. Very chatty. Oh, I love this. Cheshire says nothing ever gets done at the hotel. Not boots, not petticoats, not even quick whip stitches for holes. No, I've spent so many years on the Thursday night before a convention in the hotel room, sewing on hooks and eyes or sewing on buttons on different projects, because it's always the last thing and I'm always running out of time. Well, not always, but frequently I have been. And I always forget. And so there I am on Thursday nights. And one of my big goals for the last few years is to be at a point where I don't need to be sewing anything when I get to the convention hotel. I just want to be able to spend quality time and get unpacked and enjoy the people I'm with. And so, oh gosh, I'm very short, and sometimes the shortness means I slide out of my chair. So I try really hard to have everything done. And if I don't, then my punishment is that I don't get to socialize and see people. And really, I am extremely bereft in that circumstance because I love the people. I want to be seeing people. Oh, good. Excellent. Done such a good job. Slippery with stitching. I love that. That's so good. So, yes, I'm trying very hard to make certain these days that I have managed my time better and that everything that needs to be done in order to wear the garment is done. Now, before I put on the dragon the first time, I definitely was in the hotel room on Thursday night sewing on gems. But we waited until after dinner, and I told the Grand Arbiter that if the gems did not get stitched on, it was still wearable. So it was just extra faff. But I am trying so hard to uh, have better time management in that regard. Um, Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Cheshire says decided to fly in Thursday morning for TUSCon, specifically to hang out and chill before all the peopling. Excellent. I'm so pleased. Also, let me know if you need a ride, since I'm local. Now, if you're coming to TUSCon, this isn't for Cheshire. Cheshire is coming to TUSCon. But if you are a person who's coming to the TUSCon and you have not yet made your plans, the hotel is right by the airport. So if you don't have a local person or I am not available, because if I am available and you're coming and I know you, then I'm generally willing to do pickups from the hotel. But if you don't have person, or if I'm otherwise engaged picking up other people or taking them home or taking them to the hotel, what have you, then it's very close and the Uber or Lyft is not terrible. And you could even walk it if that is your kind of thing. It's like maybe half a mile, maybe from maybe it's like 3 blocks. It's so close. It's like, and I'm counting as blocks the concourses. So it's like 2 concourses, a parking garage, and then a road, and then there's the hotel. It's right by the airport, is what I'm saying. So it's very convenient, which is nice. But also, again, I live here, and so I can be asked for rides. And if I have the wherewithal, it's less than a 10-minute gay walk to the hotel from the airport. That is correct, Cheshire. It's very close. And during the daytime, people are going to see you, and so it's not any kind of, I don't think it's dangerous. If it's during the nighttime, I'd say it's probably dodgy to walk because it's a very poorly lit area, and it's very dark, and people may not see you as you are crossing the street. So keep that in mind, everyone. But it is actually so close to the airport, which is really a bonus. Even if you walk the wrong end, the airport is at you. And so you'll just end up across the street from the hotel. So you can't even get that lost, which is very nice. Although crossing the street is not that street is like 4 or 5 lanes wide, so that would be a mess. But if you go the proper direction from the airport to the hotel, you just have one little street to cross. It's not that busy as it's a side street. I realize I need to update and make available my typical guide to the con. So I'm very behind on everything. I'm working and I'm trying to like ramp up all the things, and also somehow I feel like I'm just not catching up. So, but I usually produce a little guide to the convention, any convention I go to regularly, that includes some information about the weather and things to do that are local and places to get food and that sort of thing. So I have one for TUSCon, but I do try and like review it before I release it to make certain that everything is still open, still available, and what have you. Almost, I'm in the last quarter here of the raffle now. Huh, what a relief! What a relief! I'm so ready. And I gathered it up just a bit too much, so let me release my gathers a bit, just a smidge. There we go. Release the gathers. Oh, thank you. Joanne says, Jake and I enjoyed your guide to Tucson, loved the miniature museum. The miniature museum is legitimately one of our treasures, local treasures that people don't know about. It's an incredible museum, especially if you like miniatures, but just if you like art. A lot of it is art made by people who just feel compelled to make beautiful, whimsical, strange little things. I love that place. Currently, they have an exhibit of Harryhausen ephemera, some of his figures, figurines, and models and things he used for his famous films like Jason and the Argonauts. And it's so, I haven't had time to go. The exhibit is going to be there with the Harryhausen things until May, I believe. So there's time to see it at Wild WestCon if you're not here for TUSCon. And I really need to get over and see it because I love his movies. And yes, Cheshire, there are so many tacos in Tucson. Honestly, the problem is with things like tacos here is that everybody has their favorite place, and it can be hotly contested. I'm kind of a pedestrian lover of things like tacos. I'm, not a taco expert. So I know that my choice in tacos may be viewed as kind of like plebeian. But even the most plebeian taco here, if it's a local indie place, is going to be amazing. Apparently, that we do have some fast food Mexican places as well, but who goes to those for the most part, unless you're like, it's 2 a.m. and you've been out dancing all night or something. It's the perfect time for that sort of thing. Although we used to have a place called the Taco Shop that we all went to that was open 24 hours. It was a real hole in the wall, and they do a mean horchata. So I believe they closed. More's the pity, because we all loved the Taco Shop. Ridiculous little place that it was. And who doesn't like a place that's open 24/7 when you've been out enjoying a night of libations and dancing. It's very satisfying. Da, 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 da. I'm still going. I'm still pinning and stoking the gathers here. Cheshire says, I would annihilate a good flouter. Oh, I know there are good flouters here. Look, my favorite local place is El Charro, which is a very tried and true old place. It was one of the original restaurants in Tucson. It's been family owned this whole time. I love their food. Some people consider it too touristy now, but I think it's still quite good. Their carne seca is excellent if you like that sort of thing. And I always love their burros because they don't have burritos. They're too big. They're full on burro. And also, I mean, this definitely, like, they do like a little flouter appetizer there that I recall being quite good. So I don't know how they are with gluten-free things. I should know, but I don't. I'll have to review. They're wonderful. They're downtown. They're so good. But the convention is on the south side of Tucson, which has probably per capita the best Mexican food in Tucson. So for Mexican food, you are in the place for the good stuff. Don't listen to anyone who tells you they know a good burro place. because you don't want a donkey. So anyway, yeah, no. Tucson has incredible, honestly, it's got an incredible food scene here, period. I know I sound biased, but it happens to be true. And lots of wonderful, independent, locally owned restaurants of all kinds. We have an incredible immigrant and refugee community here in Tucson, and they've brought all of their food culture with them. We're so rich in fantastic places to eat all kinds of foods. I love that. The big thing is, I think we have rather a dearth of good Chinese places, although that has been improving. It's my one real criticism. We have amazing Indian cuisine here. We have indigenous cuisine as well. It's so good. We have so many wonderful African eateries. One of my favorite places is this little Ethiopian place called Zamam's. I love going there with dear friends. Cheshire says I will be staking out the hotel restaurant for any good silverware. They have rubbish silverware. I mean, it's usable, it's functional. It's not exciting silverware, unfortunately. I'm sad to report. There is I think there's still a Denny's just down the road from the convention hotel, which can be an important thing to know. There is, this is really important. There is a Waffle House around the corner from this hotel. And there have been a few times where we have had late programming and we descend upon the Waffle House. Sometimes still in costume, although generally speaking, I try not to go there in full kit, just because it's a small place and my costumes are large, and I don't want to get hash browns on the bustle dress, if you will. But it's very convenient when you have gotten out of an event at 11 p.m. and you would really like dinner, please, to just go round to Waffle House. Last I checked, the Waffle House here in Tucson, we have a couple, but we're the westernmost Waffle Houses in the United States. So this is the end of the road for Waffle House here in Tucson. And if you haven't been to one, I will probably try and take you, or suggest that we do a group outing if time permits. All right, almost done here. The last 5 inches. I'm certain there's a joke in there. All right. Do, 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 do. So pleased. That pin is dead. Okay. Come here, pins. I'm glad I ordered more pins. My heavens. When I was a newer sewist, I used to hold on to my pins like they were the most irreplaceable thing ever. I was very, very careful. And I'm not like profligate. I'm not tossing pins all over the place. But when a pin is dull and bent now, I toss it. I don't hold on to pins that don't work anymore. But when I was a new sewist, I would hold on to the cheapest, dullest, banged up pins because I just felt like I couldn't replace them. Pins are not that expensive. Unless you're buying really bougie pins, they're not that expensive. I do recommend glass head pins as your baseline pin because they will not melt when you are pressing your fabric, and they tend to be sharper and a nicer, smoother, cleaner pin. They're a better grade of inexpensive pin. So they're slightly more expensive than your average plastic headed pin, but they are worth the extra cost. I do get somewhat bougie pins. So I these days I get these comfort grip pins, and I particularly like the orange headed ones. These these are these are for silk, and you can see how very fine that needle is. It's so fine. It's also incredibly sharp. I have never been stabbed as effectively by any other pin as I have been by my silk pins. Don't step on these; they will stab you through your foot. They won't go through a shoe sole, but if you're barefoot, which I try not to be in the workshop, they will stab you in the bottom of the foot. Ask me how I know. This is a very long, big, hardy pin. This is typically for quilting. I actually like really long pins because I like the extra leverage. I find them easier to see in my really big projects with a million layers of fabric. And so these are very helpful. And I like the comfort grip because it is comfortable for my hands when they are tired, and it is heat resistant, so I can press right over this and it won't melt. So very important. And yes, pins, they do come in different fonts, if you will. They come in different thickness, different length, different styles. There are lots of different kinds of pins for different projects. So they're like T-pins and metal-headed pins and glass-headed pins and like quilting pins. I've even used insect pins for some sewing projects. I really love the insect pins. Honestly, they're stunning. They're black and they have little brass heads on them and they're so beautiful. And they're very, very sharp. And they're great for millinery, but they're also wonderful, like little decorative elements. And they're very strong. I love those. They're beautiful. I don't, they're meant for actually taking dead insects and pinning them for display to boards. I don't do that. I use them for fabric and things. Right. So this is all pinned. The gathers are stroked and stoked and smoothed and arranged and they've been fondled and all of the things. It's pinned within an inch of its life. So now I need to go in and I need to run a line of stitches right down the middle of that alleyway of my gathering cords, and then this ruffle is in place and I need to do it many more times after this. So I have another 3 ruffles after this one to put just along the back of the garment. And then I have a huge ruffle to put at the bottom of the petticoat. If anything, this should give you a sense of how long it can take to do something like petticoat. The more faff, the more ruffles, the more furbelows and trims and things, the longer a project takes. So someone asked me recently how long it took me to make one of my frocks, and it varies dramatically on the garment. So infamously, the dragon costume took me 9 months to make both of them for the Grand Arbiter and myself. And in that 9 months, I also made a corset to go with the garment. I did not get around to making a petticoat and bustle cage to go with it as I had originally intended. So now I'm making a new petticoat and bustle cage and things because I really need them. So that one took 9 months. The little floral ensemble that I posted on social media yesterday, I made that up in a week. It has very minimal trim on it, and I used a foundation skirt I already had that I had already made, so I didn't need to make the skirt, and the skirt has 0 trim on it, no trim. And the overskirt has just one very small row of ruffles and 1 row of lace, so it went very quick to put it together. Oh, Cheshire is tired of watching me. So I'm stroking the ruffles, I'm assuming. So anyway, my darlings, this has been such fun. Thank you so much for hanging out and chatting with me. As usual, if you have questions about sewing, please throw them up in the chat. I always will answer them if I know the answer, and if I don't, I'm always happy to point you at resources to help you with your question. That is my pleasure. So I will be stitching away pretty constantly between now and March, probably. But I will certainly be stitching away on Saturday. And if you are a Patreon subscriber, I'll see you not this Sunday, but next Sunday. This Sunday, we have book club. So we're discussing the fantastic novel, Strange Practice by Vivian Shaw. And Friday night, we have two special guests joining us for Friday tea. Sharon Skinner, who's a wonderful author here in Arizona, is joining us. And then Bob Nelson, who is the editor in chief of Brick Cave Media, will be talking about all sorts of nonsense. It will be a wonderful time. And yes, Cheshire, 300 inches of ruffles is so much effort. Um, it does go faster when I'm not talking about it. It does go faster when I'm not pausing to show things, but not that much faster because I wasn't doing a lot of pausing and showing you what I was working on today. I did a little bit. I did a little bit of explaining. I did some pausing, but I was mostly just working constantly. So this is why I like to do something like this when I'm having a conversation. It's a really great project to be doing when a friend is also working on things. I like to do ruffles and things when I have something I can watch in the background, or a really good audiobook, or a really juicy podcast, something to keep my brain engaged, because my brain is incredibly bored when I'm doing this kind of repetitive sewing work. I love the engineering of sewing. I love the challenge of the design. And there are even some kinds of stitching that I find really enjoyable. Like I'm very into stitching up a corset, to be honest. I love the challenge of it. It requires a lot of precision sewing, and I'm here for it. But there are certain aspects of creating these frocks that I know on their own they're not particularly fun to do. The end result is fun. The finished product is fun. Wearing it is fun. But putting on this ruffle, that wasn't like fun time had by all. The fun part was talking to all of you about it. Yes, audio. Cheshire says audiobooks are great for not focusing on focusing. Yes, I often listen to things I've already listened to before, so that I'm not so distracted I forget to be working. So let's say I start listening to the latest Charlie Jane Anders book that I just got from the library, for instance. It's waiting for me in my queue. I'm so excited to listen to it. I cannot be listening to that and doing this project, because I will get riveted and I'll stop working and I'll just be focused on listening. So I'll listen to things like I'm re-listening to The White Trash Warlock right now by David R. Slayton, for instance. I will listen to The Lord of the Rings. I'll listen to Terry Pratchett, something that I have heard a number of times before, so that I know what's coming. I'm enjoying the story, but I'm not too distracted from the thing, but I'm just engaged enough that I'm not kind of going stir crazy whilst I work on the project. Here's the fun thing, though. I think this is the best part about this ruffle. It took me like an hour to pin all of this in place and get it all positioned. It will take me like 10 minutes to sew the whole thing. And it took me about probably 10-ish minutes to put in the gathering stitches. So the hem was fairly time consuming. The sewing is so fast because the sewing machine will just whip through this. Pas de problème. Yeah. And so that 10 minutes, let's see, it's about 100 inches. What is that per minute? I don't know, but it's a number of inches per minute. So yeah, the sewing will go pretty fast, actually. So that part's not bad. It's the prep. People, yeah, probably 10 minutes to just sew this row of ruffles on. Absolutely. So the stitching part is pretty quick. Often the thing that is most time consuming about sewing is not the actual seam, it is the preparation. So the pressing, the cutting of the fabric, the arranging of the pattern pieces, all of that takes so much time. And then I just whip through the stitching. Yeah, so much effort, so much time. It's a wild experience, but it also means I'm very impatient when it comes to things like knitting or crochet, because I love the effect, but then I get into uh, the actual production. I'm like, these stitches take forever. What's happening? This is taking forever. This is like preparing to make the thing. And I think that's just sort of like where you can see I come from a different background. Cheshire says this is like boot blacking. The prep before the popping of the shine is the most extra. Yeah, the most effort. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's a wild time. Sometimes the effort, the labor is often what goes on behind the scenes that you don't see or you can't envision happening if you've never done this kind of project or work. So I'm very happy. I didn't know that I was going to be discussing this, but I'm very happy to talk about the timeline of creating these things and how much effort can go into it. The other thing about it is I think I have perceived that people don't always understand how long a thing takes for me, and they may feel like they are too slow, that they're taking too long, that they can that I'm magically going quite fast. No, I'm just taking hours and hours to make things. Um, you do get faster with practice, but there's like a limit to how fast things can happen. Maybe if I did ruffles all day, every day, I would get faster at this process. But this I felt actually went fairly quickly for this amount of ruffling, to be honest. So on as long as it took me to do, it still felt on the faster end of doing this. So Cheshire says, I'm intimidating when it comes to my creations, me. And they are hoping to make a pair of pants soon. Look, excellent. Just pants that fit is a huge accomplishment and is a really important thing to do. You like to wear pants, you like trousers, making yourself a pair of trousers that fit, absolutely prime. I have been doing this for a long time. The time travel makes it hard to keep up with just how long, but at least a quarter of a century. And before I started making garments, I did a lot of hand sewing. Actually, I did so much embroidery work before I got into garment making. I've been doing that since I was like a very small child. As soon as my grandmama could put a needle and thread in my hands, basically. Um, so like 7, something like that. Uh, and then I went from hand embroidery to making handmade little garments for my dolls, usually out of whatever strange fabric I had kicking around, which was often slightly worn out socks that I cut apart and restitched into frocks. Um, and like Cheshire says, I'm still working on hand sewing my project from months ago. I keep looking at it and then pretending it doesn't exist. Hand sewing is very time consuming. This is one of the reasons that machine sewing is so wonderful. It's very liberating, actually. And it's liberating for a certain segment of the population, the segment that tends to be the garment makers, and that tends to be strongly divided along gender lines. And so the advent of the sewing machine in the world really changed everything. It's one of the most revolutionary inventions, and it doesn't get nearly the love it should. It's also a very complicated bit of engineering. There's a lot of wild things going on with the sewing machine. So anytime I can finish a thing and make a thing and use a sewing machine to do it, I do. I'm not knocking making things by hand sewing. If you are a person who likes to do really deeply historically accurate garments, you're doing that for pleasure or because you are part of a living history exhibit or what have you, yeah, good on you. The 3 cheers, all the applause, that's wonderful. But I love the freedom and empowerment and speed of a sewing machine. And so whilst I love hand finishing things, and I do get a lot of joy from hand sewing, I also choose my moment with the hand sewing because I can get so much done with a machine. So Cheshire says, dolls are so small though. Did your hands cramp? I was a child. My hands were also small, and I think that really helped. So I don't really make doll clothes anymore, but like Kenneth King, who's someone I really admire, does. Yeah. And he uses a combination of hand sewing and machine sewing to make doll clothes, and it's remarkable. Danaeus, I'm so happy. Danaeus says, thank you for sharing the slow, repetitive parts of sewing. It's very comforting. That's normal to take plenty of time to get to finishing the creation. Absolutely. I am very happy to share that part. And, clearly I'm taking a break. I cannot bear to start the next ruffle right now. Also, I have to stitch that one on so I can have those pins to be able to do the next ruffle, to be honest, which is why I bought more pins. But I think there's a real tendency in this time of social media, people, for lots of good reasons, this is not nefarious, but people show the finished project because that's what gets the best engagement. Or they do like speed runs where they sew or create or make whatever it is at the normal speed, and then they speed up the pace of the video because you want to get the thing in to 60 seconds or 30 seconds, and so you put it at that like increased speed at 5 or 10 times the speed, but people are not necessarily notating in their captions that this is sped up, that is 5 or 10 times the speed. And so then folks think that you can actually do these things in that amount of time. You cannot. There's just an amount of time that things take. There are a number of stitches per minute that your machine can make. Even if you go at your top speed, it still takes an amount of time, and that's more than 30 seconds. And also, the faster your speed, the harder it is to be accurate. So I'm very, very firm that showing the amount of time is important periodically, right? I'm not always going to do these very tedious long form things live because we have other stuff to look at. Danaeus, it was wonderful to have you listening along on your drive home for work. You are so welcome. Thank you for joining me. I am also signing off because it is that time. I'm out of tea and I need to go make my dinner. The butlers are still not here cooking for me, more's the pity. So I have to rustle up my own meals, as it were, alas. You take very good care of yourself, Phyllis. Thank you so much. Phyllis says to follow my own advice. Thank you, my darling. I shall do my utmost to take care of myself as well. So as you go out into the world, my darlings, remember to treasure yourselves as I treasure you, because you are irreplaceable, my darling sparkle glitter unicorns. And Scon Mistress, it's good to see you right as I'm wrapping up. Love to you and your wonderful partner and your hobbit, who may be chaos incarnate, although I think it is the age of chaos, is it not, for small children right now? So please take very good care, everyone. I will see you Friday night with the Grand Arbiter and our special guests, Sharon Skinner and Bob Nelson. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things, including TuskCon, where you'll be able to see all of us in person. And then join me Saturday for more stitching and Sunday for our book chat. I'll see you all later. Cheers.